Astria had always felt like she was living in the background, unnoticed, misunderstood, and utterly alone. Her ability to sense others' emotions set her apart, making her an outcast even in her own home. While her sister Tiffany basked in endless affection, Astria learned to retreat, concealing her true self to avoid judgment. But when she sensed imminent danger threatening those she cared about, she knew she couldn't remain silent forever. Stay tuned to see how Astria finds the strength to break free from years of neglect and forges her own path. Don't forget to subscribe for more transformative stories. Every family faces struggles. Some endure financial hardships, others clash over differences. Yet there are families that manage to stand together through thick and thin. It's clear which kind leads to true happiness, don't you think? My name is Astria, and for as long as I can remember, I've been labeled as different. Not in an obvious way, just enough for people to make it clear that I wasn't like them. The label itself wasn't the issue. It was the way I was treated because of it. My own parents disregarded me, leaving me to navigate a lonely childhood. Unlike others, I have an unusual sensitivity to people's emotions. I can't explain how, but I just know what they're feeling. It's not something I see or hear. It's as instinctive as breathing. To me it felt natural, yet no one else seemed to share this ability. I never understood why. One day my father brought a colleague home from work, and an unsettling feeling crept over me. Something wasn't right. I warned my mother to be cautious, but she dismissed my concerns. Later that same colleague deceived my father into signing as a guarantor for a shady loan. Though my mother had ignored me, I still tried to intervene. As my father prepared to sign, I blurted out, "Dad, the word joint feels dangerous. I don't know why, but please be careful." He hesitated. In the end, he refused to sign. When the colleague eventually went bankrupt, my father was spared from inheriting the financial disaster. Another time, while shopping with my mother, a wave of unease surged through me. Turning around, I spotted a man wearing sunglasses and a hat. His presence felt ominous. Instinctively, I tugged at my mother's hand and whispered, "Let's take the side street." She hesitated, confused by my urgency. But just as we stepped away, a cry erupted from behind us. Thief! A man had snatched a woman's purse, shoving her to the ground and injuring her. Had we remained in that spot, my mother could have been his target. Incidents like these kept happening, fueling the perception that I was strange. My parents, unsure of how to handle me, began keeping their distance. The more I experienced, the more isolated I became. What felt normal to me was unfathomable to others, so I stopped sharing my thoughts. I learned that silence was safer. I have a younger sister, Tiffany. She's 4 years my junior and, unlike me, was adored by everyone. Over time, as I withdrew, Tiffany's charm only seemed to grow. It became obvious who was favored. Our parents lavished Tiffany with attention, leaving me as an afterthought. "Tiffany is such a delightful girl," they'd say. "But Astria, she's always been a little different." They noticed I had stopped behaving oddly, yet I remained an outsider. They never realized my so-called strangeness had only been me trying to protect them. Tiffany, pampered and adored, soon mirrored our parents' treatment of me. "I don't like being around you," she would sneer. "Your gloominess rubs off on me. I'm cute, but your dark energy ruins my mood." She took every opportunity to ridicule me. Though our parents would lightly reprimand her, they never truly corrected her behavior. When Tiffany was scouted by a talent agency in 5th grade, she was over the moon. "It's because I'm cute," she declared. "They said I could be on TV." Our parents seemed thrilled at the prospect, but something about the agency didn't sit right with me. "You should think carefully," I cautioned. "Something about this feels off." Tiffany scoffed. "Are you jealous because no one picked you? Stop being weird and don't interfere." Even our parents dismissed my concerns, too enchanted by the idea of Tiffany becoming a star. I realized then that my voice would never matter to them. So I vowed to remain silent once again. In junior high, a new student teacher arrived. A college graduate training to be a physical education instructor. The girls were especially drawn to his friendly demeanor, but something about him unsettled me. A dark aura clung to him. For years I had hidden my abilities, but this time I couldn't ignore the warning signs. I chose a teacher who seemed trustworthy and confided in her. I know this sounds strange, but please believe me. I need your help. To my surprise, she agreed without questioning my reasoning. That evening, she waited in the designated spot I had mentioned. Within minutes, the student teacher arrived, heading straight for the girls' restroom, where he began installing a hidden camera. The teacher caught him in the act. The next day, the school was in chaos. He was arrested for violating privacy laws, preventing a horrifying invasion of the students' dignity. Meanwhile, Tiffany's talent agency turned out to be a scam. There were no real auditions, only expensive fees. Then one day the agency vanished, taking her money with it. Furious, Tiffany lashed out. "This is your fault. You ruined my future." It made no sense, yet she genuinely believed it. Perhaps blaming me was the only way she could cope. Our parents never outright blamed me, but their actions spoke volumes. They grew colder toward me, rallying around Tiffany instead. Once again I was the outsider. I was grateful that my warning had protected my classmates, yet I feared that my actions had further alienated me. Then, unexpectedly, the teacher who had trusted me called me to the staff room. "You knew something was going to happen, didn't you?" she asked. No small talk, no hesitation, just quiet understanding. For the first time I confessed the truth about my ability. Instead of doubting me, she simply nodded. "I thought so. There are very few people like you." To my surprise, she revealed that she knew someone just like me. Her aunt, Isolde, who had spent her life grappling with the same gift. "Perhaps talking to her will help," the teacher suggested. Meeting Isolde changed everything. She understood the struggles I had faced, and her words lifted the weight I had carried alone for so long. From that day forward, she became my mentor, though she laughed whenever I called her that. "No need for formalities," she'd say. With her guidance, I slowly embraced my abilities instead of hiding from them. I began to reconnect with the world, to live as an ordinary girl. It was a slow, challenging process, but for the first time I felt like myself. However, my relationship with Tiffany remained strained. Since the talent agency debacle, we had grown even more distant. She barely spoke to me now, unless it was to hurl insults. I often wondered what had triggered this rift between us, but the answer no longer mattered. I had finally chosen myself, and for once that was enough. Even my abilities couldn't predict her emotional shifts. "Just because you got into college doesn't make you special," she would sneer. "It's not even a great school and you're just so careless." My sister, who had dreamed of getting into her ideal high school but ended up settling for her second choice, grew resentful when I was accepted into my first choice college. It wasn't as if I had rubbed it in her face. She criticized me out of her own frustrations. Instead of addressing the tension between us, our parents focused entirely on soothing her anger, keeping their distance from me as though I were to blame and should simply stay out of the way. It seemed my sister resented the fact that I had grown more confident after meeting my mentor. To her, I was supposed to remain a dull, gloomy girl, someone she could always see as inferior. Yet my sister was truly intelligent. It was surprising that she hadn't passed her high school entrance exams. Of course, she poured all her frustration into her studies at her new school, pushing herself relentlessly. As a result, she ranked at the top of her class all 4 years and secured admission into a prestigious national university on her first attempt. I, on the other hand, had been accepted into the most challenging university. "My college is far superior to yours," she boasted one day. I responded casually, "That's true," knowing there was no point in getting drawn into an argument. But my indifferent reaction only fueled her fury. She took it as if I were mocking her achievements. What followed was an outpouring of insults, a barrage of verbal abuse directed solely at me. My parents, exhausted by my sister's uncontrollable temper, could do nothing but watch anxiously. Instead of calming her, they turned to me. "You always cause trouble," they sighed as if I were responsible for everything. I wanted to argue back to point out who the real problem was. But I always swallowed my words, choosing silence over unnecessary conflict. Pushing aside my sister's issues, I had to face an important decision as I neared my college graduation: my career. I was no longer as withdrawn as I had once been, yet socializing remained a struggle, and I lacked confidence in forming meaningful relationships. My ability allowed me to sense people's emotions, but negativity was far more prominent than positivity, making it an overwhelming experience. Throughout school, I had been tormented by these emotions, almost losing faith in people. Would someone like me even be able to function in a workplace? Seeking guidance, I turned to my mentor. I wanted to know how she had overcome similar struggles, because surely she had faced them too. "I've had the same worries as you," she admitted. "Maybe you should consider doing what I do." My mentor had previously worked as a fortune teller and counselor, helping people resolve their problems. Her abilities allowed her to assist others while also maintaining her independence. Working freelance meant she wasn't tied to any organization, reducing the risk of getting caught in complex human relationships. "It's the perfect job for people like us," she assured me. Encouraged by her words, I decided to follow the same path. She guided me through everything: how to start, how to build a client base. Thanks to the internet, working remotely was entirely possible. However, when I informed my parents and sister that I wouldn't be seeking traditional employment but would instead work from home, their reactions were exactly as I had expected. "What kind of job is that?" they scoffed. "Sounds ridiculous. You'll be home all day. At least make yourself useful and handle the housework. Can you even make a living doing that? How will you cover expenses? As long as you contribute to the household, do whatever you want." They finally relented. Even though I had anticipated their indifference, their lack of support still stung. Instead of encouragement, all they cared about was housework and money. Their words weighed on me as I started my work-from-home life. In the beginning, I had no clients. I struggled every day, feeling lost and helpless. But with my mentor's guidance, I gradually found my footing and began earning a steady income. For nearly a year, I wasn't able to contribute financially, so I took on the housework to compensate. My father remained unimpressed, though my mother, ever the peacemaker, kept him from voicing his discontent too often. A year later, when I finally started contributing money, my father scoffed. "Oh, so you're finally making some pocket change?" Yet, despite his dismissive tone, I could see the subtle satisfaction in his eyes as my earnings started to grow. Still, even with financial contributions, my household responsibilities didn't decrease. Nothing in our home changed. 3 years later, my sister graduated from college and secured a position at a foreign company. "Unlike you, I'm an elite," she smirked. "You're just unemployed and worthless. It's embarrassing to even call you my sister." Having landed a corporate job, she wasted no opportunity to belittle me for working remotely. "Working from home is just playing around," she sneered. "You're nothing more than a parasite living under our parents' roof." She mocked me further. "It's so weird not having a real job. Meanwhile, I'm out in the world, earning everyone's respect. I was just promoted to team leader. My salary is probably 5 times yours. There's no way a homebody like you could ever make that much." Tiffany had been working for just a year and a half before her promotion, yet she constantly flaunted her salary. Ironically, she contributed almost nothing to the household. The burden of chores, laundry, cooking, cleaning, fell entirely on my mother and me. When I tried to address this imbalance, I told her, "Tiffany, you should take some responsibility. You can't just spend all your earnings on yourself. You need to contribute to the household too." He waved me off. "You're the unemployed one, so you can handle the chores. I'm saving for my future." As always, our parents let her have her way. "It's Tiffany," they would say dismissively. "She can't help it." I had grown accustomed to my lifestyle. It was comfortable, allowing me to work in peace. But I started wondering, how could I truly take care of myself? How could I stop being the one who always had to pick up the slack? Then one day, out of nowhere, my sister dropped a bombshell. Without any prior discussion, she suddenly announced, "He's a real elite with an incredible income." Then, sneering at me, she added, "Marriage is just a fantasy for an unemployed person like you, isn't it?" She casually declared that she would be introducing her boyfriend to us the following Sunday. When the day arrived, we were still trying to process the sudden development. The man she introduced was impeccably dressed, sharp in a tailored suit, exuding the air of a successful professional. "Nice to meet you," he said smoothly. "My name is Braxton. I would like to ask for your permission to marry Tiffany." His voice was calm, his demeanor polished. His presence commanded respect. "Isn't he wonderful?" Tiffany gushed. "I'm going to be so happy with him." Impressed, my father asked, "So, Braxton, what do you do for a living?" Braxton gave a small smile. "I'm currently training at a company my father owns," he replied. The term training raised a few eyebrows, but before we could ask further, Tiffany jumped in excitedly. "His father is the president of the company. He's being trained to take over in the future," she boasted, practically glowing with pride. My parents were thrilled. They saw this as Tiffany securing a life of wealth and status. But something about Braxton unsettled me. It wasn't anything obvious, just a faint, inexplicable darkness beneath his charming exterior. A shadow only I could sense. I could no longer stay silent. "Tiffany, you've only been dating him for 4 months. Maybe you should take more time to really know him before deciding to marry," I urged, trusting my instincts. She laughed mockingly. "Oh, I see. You're jealous, aren't you? Bitter because you're comparing your life to my happiness? Poor, jobless sister. Even our parents sided with her. You're unemployed. At least stop interfering in your sister's happiness," they scolded. Frustration swirled inside me, but I was powerless to stop what came next. Before I knew it, their engagement was official. My sister stood at the door, smirking. "Can you even comprehend how much I'm appreciated at my company? I guess a shut-in like you wouldn't understand," she gloated before leaving the house. She never missed an opportunity to throw in a few insults at me. At the grand wedding ceremony held at a luxurious hotel, the couple who had just pledged eternal love to each other entered the reception hall. My sister, beaming with joy, radiated happiness. But as I watched her, a lingering thought crossed my mind: how long would this happiness last? As my sister had proudly mentioned before, the CEO of her company delivered a keynote speech, showering her with praise. She basked in the admiration, looking utterly delighted. Once the speeches ended, the banquet began, with waiters serving extravagant dishes to each table. At first I admired the beautifully plated food. But soon a strange sense of discomfort crept in. Something was wrong. Everyone around me had been served appetizers, drinks, and entrees. Everyone except me. I waited, assuming my meal was just delayed. But as more dishes arrived at other tables, it became evident. My seat had been deliberately ignored. People at my table noticed the oddity and began whispering among themselves. Then my sister appeared beside me, leaning in close. With a laugh in her voice, she whispered, "We didn't prepare free meals for the unemployed. It's such a waste to serve gourmet food to a jobless person like you. You should just eat potato chips at home. Just leave your gift money and go." Her words rang in my ears like a slap. Across the hall, Braxton sat at the groom's table, grinning and nodding in agreement. Even my parents, who initially looked surprised, soon wore disapproving expressions. "Well, it's true. Astria is jobless after all," my father muttered, shaking his head. For a moment I was too stunned to react. Then a surge of anger flooded through me. "I never thought you'd stoop this low, Tiffany," I said, my voice trembling. "Mom, Dad, how could you just accept this? This is unacceptable." My parents didn't even look ashamed. They merely scowled at me, unwilling to reprimand my sister. Fine, I said, rising to my feet. I get it. I'm leaving. But don't come crying to me later. My sister scoffed. You sound like a sore loser. Then, just as I turned to leave, another voice rang out through the reception hall. Sorry to interrupt. A man stood up from his seat. He had sharp, piercing eyes and an expression of barely contained disgust. I'm the groom's brother, Jasper, he introduced himself. My brother and parents are trash, but it seems the bride is even worse. A stunned silence fell over the room. I can't take this anymore, Jasper continued. Then he turned to Braxton and his parents. Dad, your company went bankrupt 5 months ago, didn't it? Pretending to still be the CEO is just a scheme to mooch off the bride's family. Braxton will never become a CEO, he's unemployed. His words sent shockwaves through the hall. Guests gasped, their murmurs growing louder. But the most dramatic reaction came from my sister. What do you mean you lied to me? Tiffany's voice cracked. What do you mean unemployed? Her face turned from red to pale as realization dawned. Our parents, who had been smug just moments ago, now looked horrified. What kind of nonsense is this? My father bellowed, turning on Braxton and his parents. My mother, in pure panic, clutched my sister's arm as if trying to steady her. Meanwhile, Braxton sat frozen, his confident smirk wiped clean. His parents remained silent, their expressions sour. I, however, was prepared for this moment. Before the ceremony, Jasper had approached me. He had confessed his guilt over his family's deception and had apologized sincerely. I had asked him to speak the truth if anything happened during the reception. And he had kept his word. Before my sister could lash out further, another man abruptly stood up. I've heard enough, he declared. It was the president of my sister's company. His voice carried an authority that made even my sister shrink back. This is embarrassing. Tiffany, you have no right to criticize the groom after the way you've treated your own sister. His gaze swept over the room before landing on me. I didn't come to this wedding for you, Tiffany, he admitted bluntly. I wouldn't have bothered if you weren't Astria's sister. My sister's eyes widened in confusion. Huh? Who are you talking about? The president smiled faintly. Astria is a goddess to many of us business owners. She has rescued countless companies from the brink of collapse. Gasps filled the room. My sister looked utterly dumbfounded. He continued, I first met Astria when she was starting out as a fortune teller and business consultant. But she wasn't just some self-proclaimed advisor. Every single one of her predictions and strategies turned out to be spot on. The companies that sought her guidance saw rapid success, achieving a V-shaped recovery. Whispers spread like wildfire through the hall. The truth is, Tiffany, the president added, your company consulted Astria 5 months ago. Thanks to her advice, it survived. That's why I'm here today, to support her, not you. Silence. Then my sister finally managed to choke out, I had no idea. Her arrogance shattered in an instant. I folded my arms. I earned several times more than you, Tiffany. And for years I contributed significantly to the household. But Mom and Dad assumed that money came from you. Our parents looked stunned. Wait, that was from Astria? My father asked, clearly shaken. I nodded. Tiffany never contributed a cent. Chaos erupted. The guests murmured and the wedding reception was quickly called off. The venue refunded everyone's gift money, and the once grand celebration crumbled into a disaster. Later, Tiffany faced the harsh consequences of her actions. She divorced Braxton, but with him unemployed and his family financially ruined, she received almost nothing in alimony. Worse, she had signed a lease for an expensive apartment in her name, expecting Braxton's supposed wealth to support her. Now she was drowning in debt. Word of her disgraceful behavior at the wedding spread through her workplace. The CEO, disgusted by her treatment of me, demoted her. Without her prestigious title, her pride as an elite employee shattered. She wanted to run away to quit, but she had no choice but to stay. She was buried under financial burdens. As for Braxton and his family, they barely scraped by doing day labor to survive. Jasper, the only decent one among them, completely cut ties with them. My parents, who had always favored Tiffany, suddenly tried to reconcile with me. They begged me to stay now that Tiffany was useless to them. But I had enough. I'm cutting ties. Goodbye forever, I told them. I packed my things, left the house, and started fresh in my own apartment. Without me supporting them, my parents quickly realized they had no way to maintain their old lifestyle. They struggled daily while I thrived. My career flourished. More companies sought my expertise. My reputation grew, bringing both financial success and personal fulfillment. And amidst all this, I grew closer to Jasper. He had been honest and brave during that chaotic time, and his kindness never wavered. Recently he proposed. I accepted. Looking back, I feel both relief and pride. I walked away from toxic relationships, built a successful career, and found someone who truly values me. For the first time, I look toward the future with hope. And I can't wait to see what's next.